What if I told you that your grandmother, who lived through the Great Depression with nothing but a wood stove and a victory garden, was wealthier than you are right now? Not wealthier in dollars, wealthier in something the modern world has convinced you it doesn't exist anymore. Something that can't be repossessed, can't be inflated away, and can't be taken from you even when the banks close their doors and the grocery stores run empty. The people who survived 1933 didn't have more money than you. They had something better. They had independence. And somewhere between their world and yours, that independence was stolen. Not in one dramatic heist, but slowly, over decades, until you woke up one morning and realized you can't even make breakfast without depending on a supply chain that stretches across 3 continents. This isn't a story about nostalgia. This is a story about a trap, and you're in it. The hollow economy doesn't announce itself with sirens and flashing lights. It creeps in quietly, wearing the mask of convenience. It promises you freedom while it builds a cage so comfortable you don't notice the bars until you try to leave. And by then, the skills your grandparents took for granted, the skills that meant the difference between surviving and starving, have evaporated from your family line like morning dew under a harsh sun. Let me paint you a picture. It's 2008. The financial system is collapsing. Lehman Brothers just died. Bear Stearns is gone. The dominoes are falling. And in a small town in Ohio, a man named Robert sits in his kitchen at 3 a.m, staring at a notice from the bank. Foreclosure. He's got a master's degree, 20 years of corporate experience, and a resume that should mean something. But none of it matters now. He can't make his mortgage payment. He can't feed his family on unemployment checks that don't cover half of what his old salary used to bring in. He's got a 3-car garage, a riding lawnmower, and a refrigerator the size of a phone booth. But he doesn't know how to grow food. He doesn't know how to fix his own plumbing. He doesn't know how to darn a sock or patch a pair of jeans or butcher a chicken. Everything he knows how to do requires a corporation to employ him. Everything he needs to live requires a corporation to sell it to him. He is sophisticated and helpless in equal measure. Now rewind the clock. It's 1933. The Great Depression is crushing America like a vice. Banks have failed. Businesses are boarded up. Unemployment is at 25%. And in that same town in Ohio, a man named William sits in his kitchen. He's lost his job too. The factory closed. But William isn't staring at a foreclosure notice at 3 a.m. He's asleep because he spent the day doing what he does every day. He checked his vegetable garden. He fed his chickens. He repaired a fence post with wood. He cut himself. He helped his neighbor fix a wagon wheel in exchange for 3 dozen eggs. His wife made soap from lard and lye. His daughter patched his work shirt. His son learned to sharpen tools. Nobody in William's house is getting rich, but nobody's going hungry either, because William doesn't need the system to let him survive. He has knowledge the system can't take away. That's the difference. That's the secret. The people who made it through the 1930s with their dignity intact weren't the ones with the most money in the bank. They were the ones who needed the bank the least. But here's where it gets dark. Here's where the story turns into a crime scene. Because what happened between William's world and Robert's world wasn't an accident. It wasn't some natural evolution of progress. It was a systematic dismantling of independence, carried out over decades, executed so slowly that nobody noticed they were being robbed. They called it prosperity. They called it modernization. They called it the American dream. But what it really was, what it has always been, is the creation of the perfect consumer, a human being who can't survive without buying something every single day. Let me take you back further. 1952, post-war America. The factories that built tanks and planes during World War II are retooling for peacetime. But there's a problem. The problem is that Americans, fresh off the trauma of the Depression and the rationing of the war years, are savers. They're fixers. They're make-do and mend people. They buy something once and expect it to last 20 years. They darn their socks. They save bacon grease. They grow vegetables. They can tomatoes. They preserve meat. They know how to do things. And this is a disaster for the corporations that just built massive production infrastructure, expecting a nation of hungry consumers. So the corporations do what corporations do. They solve their problem. They hire psychologists. Edward Bernays, the father of public relations, Sigmund Freud's nephew, shows them how. You don't sell products, he tells them. You sell identity. You sell status. You sell the fantasy of who people could become if they just bought the right things. You make thrift look pathetic. You make self-sufficiency look backwards. You make dependence look like sophistication. And it works. It works so well that within a single generation, the skills that kept William's family alive in 1933 are vanishing. The victory gardens get paved over for driveways. The sewing machines gather dust. The root cellars get converted into rec rooms. The knowledge passes away with the grandparents, and the children don't think to ask for it because they've been taught that the old ways are obsolete. Why learn to preserve food when you can buy it at a supermarket? Why learn to repair clothes when new ones are so cheap? Why learn to build or fix or grow or make anything when specialists can do it better and corporations can do it cheaper? Except corporations can't do it cheaper. Not really. They can make it look cheaper by hiding the real costs. The real cost is your dependence. The real cost is that you now need their permission to survive. The real cost is that when the system hiccups, when the supply chains break, when the paychecks stop, when the store shelves empty, you have nothing to fall back on except hope that someone will rescue you. The hollow economy is called hollow for a reason. It's an economy where nothing is solid anymore. You don't own things. You lease them, rent them, subscribe to them. You don't make things. You buy them and they break, and you buy them again. You don't know things. You Google them, and when the internet goes down, the knowledge disappears. Everything is outsourced, financialized, abstracted into services and apps and monthly payments. You're not a citizen anymore. You're not even really a consumer. You're a subscription, a recurring revenue stream, a data point in someone else's quarterly earnings report. And the thing that makes it so insidious, the thing that makes it so hard to escape, is that it feels like progress. It feels like freedom. You don't have to grow your own food. You don't have to make your own clothes. You don't have to know how anything works. You can just swipe a card and someone else handles it. Isn't that liberation? Isn't that the whole point of civilization? To specialize, to let experts handle the hard stuff so you can focus on what you're good at? Sure, until the experts stop showing up, until the supply chain breaks, until the currency collapses, until the corporation decides you're not profitable anymore, until the job disappears, until the bank forecloses, until the grid goes down, and then you're standing in your kitchen at 3 a.m, surrounded by expensive appliances you don't know how to fix, staring at a refrigerator full of food you don't know how to preserve, wearing clothes you don't know how to repair, living in a house you don't know how to maintain, and the only skill you have is the ability to send emails and attend meetings for a company that just fired you. That's the hollow economy. It's hollow because everything in it is built on the assumption that nothing will ever go wrong, that the trucks will always deliver, that the power will always flow, that the paychecks will always clear, that the system will always function. And when that assumption breaks, when reality intrudes, the hollowness reveals itself. You're standing on a stage set. The buildings are cardboard. The wealth is vapor. The security is fiction. Now, let me show you what the alternative looked like, because it's not theoretical. It's historical. And it worked. 1935, rural Tennessee. The Great Depression is still grinding away. But there's a family, let's call them the Callahans, who are doing something strange. They're not starving. They're not begging. They're not lining up for government assistance. They're working. Not for wages, because there are no wages, but working nonetheless. Mr. Callahan wakes up before dawn and tends to a garden that covers half an acre. Beans, potatoes, squash, corn, tomatoes, greens. His wife, Mary, has a root cellar that stays cool enough to keep vegetables fresh for months. She knows which plants to harvest early, which to leave until the first frost sweetens them. She knows how to can, how to pickle, how to ferment. She turns a summer surplus into a winter security. Their son Thomas, 16 years old, knows how to butcher a hog. He learned from his father, who learned from his father. It's not pretty work. It's not romantic. But when you know how to turn a 300-pound animal into bacon, sausage, lard, and ham, you have a skill that's worth more than any stock certificate. Their daughter, Eleanor, can sew. Not just buttons and hems. She can take apart an old dress, cut a new pattern, and turn it into a shirt for her brother. She can see fabric the way a sculptor sees stone. She looks at a worn-out coat and sees a child's vest, a set of patches, a bundle of rags for cleaning. Nothing is waste. Everything has another use. The Callahans don't have money, but they're not poor. They have time because they're not commuting to jobs they don't have. They have food because they grew it themselves. They have heat because they know how to cut wood and maintain a stove. They have community because when everyone is struggling, you learn real fast that your neighbor's success is your success too. Mr. Callahan helps repair a barn. The neighbor pays him in laying hens. Mary teaches a young bride how to make soap. The bride's husband fixes the Callahan's wagon. Value flows in circles, not in straight lines through corporate accounts. This isn't primitive. This isn't backwards. This is sophisticated survival. This is human beings using their hands and their minds to extract security directly from the physical world without needing permission from a bank or a boss or a government agency. And the critical thing, the thing that makes this whole system work, is knowledge, skills, competence, the ability to do things. You want to know what wealth really is? Wealth is the ability to take care of yourself when no one else will. Wealth is knowing how to turn dirt into dinner. Wealth is knowing how to turn a broken thing into a working thing. Wealth is having value to offer that doesn't depend on someone else deciding you're worth employing. The Callahans had wealth. They had it in their hands, in their heads, in their habits. And nobody could take it from them because it wasn't stored in a bank account or a stock portfolio. It was stored in their competence. But that kind of wealth is dangerous. Dangerous to the system, I mean. Because if you can take care of yourself, you don't need the system. And if you don't need the system can't control you, can't sell to you, can't employ you on its terms, can't keep you compliant and cooperative and mildly desperate. Self-sufficient people are bad for business. They don't consume enough. They don't borrow enough. They don't depend enough. So the system did what systems do. It made self-sufficiency look foolish. Through advertising, through television, through the sheer propaganda weight of mass media, it sold a different vision. The modern vision, the convenient vision. Why break your back in a garden when you can buy vegetables at the store? Why learn to sew when clothes are so cheap at the mall? Why preserve food when the freezer does it for you? Why learn anything hard when you can just earn money and pay someone else to do it? And the beautiful trick, the genius of it, is that they were right for a while. For a few decades, in the middle of the 20th century, when America was the world's factory and the dollar was backed by gold and the jobs were plentiful and the wages kept rising, it actually worked. You could specialize. You could focus on one narrow skill, sell it for wages, and use those wages to buy everything else you needed. Division of labor, comparative advantage, the miracle of the market. It was all true for a while. But the thing about systems built on perpetual growth is that perpetual growth is a fairy tale. Eventually, the factories move overseas. The wages stagnate. The benefits disappear. The pensions evaporate. The jobs turn into gigs. The security turns into precarity. And suddenly, the deal doesn't work anymore. You sold your self-sufficiency for a paycheck, and now the paycheck is gone, and you've got nothing to fall back on because you never learned how to do anything except show up and follow instructions. That's where we are now. That's the trap. You're holding a handful of dollars in an economy that's hollow at the core, and you've been taught that the dollars are what matter. But the dollars only matter as long as the system that gives them value keeps functioning. And that system is creaking. It's groaning. It's holding together with duct tape and wishful thinking and the faith that somehow, some way, the people in charge will figure it out. They won't. Not because they're evil, not because they're incompetent, though some of them are, but because the system itself is built on a foundation of sand. It's built on infinite growth in a finite world. It's built on consumption without production. It's built on debt that can never be repaid. It's built on complexity that no one fully understands anymore. It's built on supply chains stretched so thin that a single ship stuck in a canal can bring global commerce to its knees. It's fragile, and fragile things break. So what do? How do you survive the hollow economy? You do what the people who survived the 1930s did. You step outside of the system. Not completely. You can't go full frontier homesteader unless you've got land and time and skills most people don't have. But you step outside it enough that your survival doesn't depend entirely on the system's continued functioning. You reclaim some of that old independence. You relearn some of those lost skills. You build some resilience back into your life. Start small. Start with food. Because food is the most fundamental dependency, and it's the easiest one to start breaking. You don't need a farm. You need a window box and some seeds. You need to learn that a tomato plant will grow in a pot on your balcony and produce fruit all summer if you water it and give it sun. You need to understand that food doesn't come from stores. It comes from dirt and sun and water and time. And once you've grown one tomato, you realize you can grow a dozen. And once you've grown a dozen tomatoes, you start thinking about what else you could grow. Lettuce, herbs, peppers, squash. This isn't about saving money on groceries, though you will. This is about breaking a dependency. This is about proving to yourself that you can create food value with your own hands. That you're not entirely reliant on the trucks showing up, the supply chain functioning, the stores staying open. You have a backup, a small one, but a backup nonetheless. Then you move to preservation, because fresh food is great until it rots. Your grandparents knew this. They knew how to turn summer abundance into winter security. Canning, pickling, fermenting, freezing, drying. These aren't exotic skills. They're basic human knowledge that we've forgotten in the space of 2 generations. You can relearn them. You can buy a canning kit for less than you spent on dinner last week. You can fill your pantry with jars of tomatoes, pickles, jam, salsa. You can look at those jars in February when the grocery store tomatoes taste like cardboard and cost $5 a pound, and you can feel something that people in the hollow economy rarely feel. Security. Real security. Not the fake security of a bank balance that can evaporate, but the physical security of food that you made, that you control, that will feed you no matter what happens to the dollar or the stock market or the job market. Then you move to repair. Because the hollow economy is designed to make you throw things away. Your shoes wear out, you buy new ones. Your jeans rip, you buy new ones. Your appliance breaks, you buy a new one. This isn't efficiency, this is extraction. They're extracting money from you by designing products that fail and making repair impossible or uneconomical. But you can refuse to play. You can learn to sew. You can learn to patch. You can learn to fix. You can watch YouTube videos and figure out how to repair the thing they told you was unrepairable. Every time you fix something instead of replacing it, you're taking money out of their hands and putting time and skill into yours. You're building competence. You're becoming less dependent. Then you move to community. Because the hollow economy isolates you. It puts you in a box, alone, consuming products and services, interacting with corporations instead of people. But the people who survived a depression survived together. They helped each other. They traded. They shared. They built networks of mutual aid that didn't depend on money changing hands. You can do this too. You can know your neighbors. You can learn what they're good at. You can offer what you're good at. You can build relationships that have value beyond friendship. Relationships that mean when things get hard, you're not alone. You're part of something bigger than yourself, a community, a tribe, a network of people who give a damn whether you make it or not. This is the path out of the hollow economy. It's not easy. It's not quick. It requires you to spend time learning things that won't immediately make you money. It requires you to value skills over credentials, competence over consumption, independence over convenience. It requires you to think like your grandparents thought, to see the world the way they saw it, to understand that real security doesn't come from having a lot of money. It comes from needing less money, from being able to do things yourself, from having knowledge that the system can't take away. The hollow economy wants you hungry, hungry for products, hungry for status, hungry for the next thing, the new thing, the better thing. It wants you on a treadmill, running faster and faster, consuming more and more, never quite satisfied, never quite secure. The way out is to step off the treadmill, to stop chasing, to start building, to trade hollow abundance for solid sufficiency. Your grandmother would understand this. She lived it. She knew that a jar of preserves on the shelf was worth more than $1 in the bank because the jar would still be there when the bank closed. She knew that a skill in your hands was worth more than a degree on your wall because the skill would feed you when the jobs disappeared. She knew that a neighbor you could trust was worth more than a stock portfolio because the neighbor would help you when the market crashed. This is 1930 grit. This is common sense that seems radical now only because we've been trained to forget it. The hollow economy is collapsing, not tomorrow, not in one dramatic crash, but slowly, steadily, the way a building collapses when the foundation rots. You can see it if you look. The jobs that don't pay enough, the inflation that eats your savings, the supply chains that break, the institutions that fail, the promises that turn out to be lies. You can wait for someone to fix it. You can hope the politicians will save you, the experts will figure it out, the system will self-correct. Or you can do what your grandparents did. You can take responsibility for your own survival. You can learn. You can build. You can grow. You can make. You can fix. You can prepare. Not for the end of the world. For the end of the world as we've known it for the last 50 years. For the transition from the hollow economy to whatever comes next. And whatever comes next, the people who make it through with their dignity intact won't be the ones with the most money. They'll be the ones who need money the least. They'll be the ones who remember what your grandmother knew. That wealth isn't what you have, it's what you can do, and no one can take that from you.